Good afternoon. Welcome to the second in the series of the LFW London Fashion Week Talks Digital. My name is Ravi Mattu. I'm the tech editor at the Financial Times. And I'm very pleased to be here, coming from one of the big media brands to one of the big media events of the year. We have a very distinguished panel to talk about that question. Can you bring real luxury online? Now, before I introduce everyone, I'm just going to ask Caroline Rush, the Chief Executive of the British Fashion Council, is going to give us a little video intro to this session. So, Andrew.
Hi, I'm Caroline Rush. Welcome to London Fashion Week Talks Digital. It's a new series of talks to explore all elements of digital and innovation. The question today is, can you bring real luxury online?
Brilliant. Now, before I introduce our panelists or ask them to introduce themselves, this question seems a pretty urgent one for all businesses, but in the fashion space, the luxury space, especially so. This was brought home to me a few months ago. I was in Paris hosting a not dissimilar session to this one with a lot of CIOs, chief information officers who kind of run technology stuff. And the head of LVMH was on the panel, a head of digital at LVMH was on the panel. And as I got off the metro to walk to the Hotel Georges V, I found the Louis Vuitton store had a massive queue outside of it. So my question to him was really, in a space such as luxury, where the personal experience is as important as the actual goods you buy, how do you replicate that in an online space? How do you bring that experiential aspect of the relationship to the web and the various portals that entails? So he has some interesting answers that I can offer as we go. But before I do that, from left to right, I'm just going to ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves. Many of them you'll know, very well known, of course. And then we'll kick off the discussion. So can I start with you, Graham?
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Graham Cook. I'm a founder and CEO of a personalization and analytics technology called Qubit. We're based here in the UK, but we got offices in the States and Europe. And we help retailers to really understand who their customers are and how to create much better engaging experiences. I've been doing big data for a long time. I was at Google for 5 years and really interested in how fashion is adopting big data to create much better experiences.
Hi, I'm Shumit Paul Chowdhury. I'm the editor of New Scientist, which you may know is the biggest science weekly in the world. We're always interested in science and its implications. We've done a fair bit about the application of technology in fashion over the years, so that's why I'm here. I'm also, as a kind of a hobby, the editor-in-chief of a journal called ARC, which is about the future. And at that, we look a lot at how design and the creative industries inform the way that the future will develop, and that's another kind of reason I'm interested in this.
Hi, I'm Jeff Quinn. I'm the CEO of TM Lewin. I guess we're kind of the bricks and mortar today, but we have an online site as well. I'm actually probably as excited as you are to listen to what's going to go on today and join in the conversation, because I feel that we're not as advanced as we should be and recognise that there's a huge opportunity to move the business forward.
Hi, I'm Ruth Chapman from Matches, co-founder, matchesfashion.com. I've been in the fashion industry for 30 years. We took our business online 7 years ago, and we have really tried to innovate, move the business forward, and we're looking continually at the customer experience, both online and physically, and how that changes. And it's a really interesting debate today for me.
I'm Stephen Webster, founder of Stephen Webster, the Jewellers. I've been a jeweller for 37 years, so I've seen a lot of changes, I think, in my industry. It's a very exciting time now, certainly because we can sell very expensive jewellery on sites like Matches, which I think probably 5 years ago I wouldn't have thought we could. So I'm interested to see what I can learn here.
Hello, I'm Tracy Everyone, and I run retail at Facebook, also including fashion and luxury. And I'm here today representing Facebook and Instagram.
Amazing. So, great panel. Ruth, let me start with you, because you said you've been in this world for 25 years as a retailer, quite small, quite niche, so I assume the experience was a very important part of it. And yet 7 years ago, you went online. So can you just give us very, very quickly, what prompted you to make that change beyond consumers changing? And what were the kind of things that you really need to think about to get people like Stephen seeing that your world was accessible to them?
So we were always 27 years in the industry, and we had 4 multi-brand locations for stores. We had a very international customer who was traveling continually and shopping with us, a very loyal customer. And when they weren't in London, they wanted to shop with us. So it felt like the right move to give them that continual connection, upload all our product onto our site, and connect with them continually. For us, it's about giving the customer choice, more ways to shop, more ways to not only to shop, but also, I mean, we talk to them about trends, we talk to them about how to wear things, and also we try to deliver excitement, a journey of discovery online, and connect with that loyal customer base continually. So starting to do that journey also leads into Instagram and Facebook and those kind of levels. And what we're getting is something that's quite interactive. So we have, in stores, we have an intimate experience. What we can create now is really interesting because we can create that through Instagram, through Facebook. It's invaluable when we get somebody Instagramming back our packaging or what they've received from us. Those things can be some of the most beautiful images we have. And it's about very, very much about imagery. Did I answer your question then?
Yeah, I think so. How does that convert into money, though? How does it convert into profits and actually making that work? Because we can post lovely pictures on Instagram, but what's your return on investment on that?
Good question. The customer is shopping online more and more. I mean, I think that the people who were very early to adopt shopping online are shopping continually. They tend to know their brands very well. They tend to be very fashion literate. But there's another part, I mean, we editorialize everything that we talk about. So there's another part where the customer's unsure, we can give them with confidence. We can talk to them about the new skirt shape. We can talk to them about how to wear the new shirt. And they will buy, and they're continually buying. We offer them a My Stylist service, so when they're slightly unsure, they can speak to somebody, they can email, they can phone, they can speak to somebody 24 hours if they like, so they can get fashion advice. And it's really, for me, it's really about personalizing the whole experience, making it as intimate and as effective for the customer online as in store.
Stephen, so let me come to you. Tell me where you were a few years ago when you didn't think it was possible to where you are now. What's changed to make that a viable opportunity and a possibility for you?
I think it's, we've already heard this word experience kind of bounding around. And I think, in a jewellery store, certainly in our business, we've tried to change the experience that people may have had 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And I think since, there's been much more activity for us, real activity, like you said, money in the bank, if you like, from the digital possibilities, it's made us really look at the experience that we offer in our stores. And, and that never stops. So it's quite a dynamic time. You just feel that you can't sit still, whether you're embracing the digital side, which I think we're all here because we do that, but also the impact it has on the more traditional bricks and mortar side of our business. And, that it's, nothing stays still. And weirdly, jewellery stayed still for a long, long time. And it doesn't anymore. It seems like, week on week, things are changing and moving forward. And as long as you embrace that, it's quite an exciting time.
Can you just give us a sense of how big, say, the online component of your business has become, I don't know, over the last 5 years or so?
I probably should have that number, shouldn't I? I don't have that number. It's definitely...
But even to give us a sensibility of how fast it's growing.
Well, if I combine things from, let's even say like the Matches site online and then, all of the retailers that I work with, so Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf, Saks, and all of the combination of the business we have online for them, and then we're just about to launch our own e-commerce website we never had before. So it's, it could be 20-25% of our business. I mean, it certainly is very significant.
Jeff, can I come to you? how does your online offering work? What's the key bit of it? Is it kind of the e-commerce bit, or is it selling elsewhere, or is it using all the Instagram functions, the social? I mean, what does actually online luxury mean in the context of TM Lewin?
For TM Lewin, I think we've come at it from a very commercial point of view. So I would say that we're probably slow from the Facebook, Instagram side, and we've looked more at the commercial applications. It's about 25% of our turnover, and we've actually mixed it in with the stores. So we have iPads in stores now, and also click and collect to stores, and those are growing phenomenally through the year now. So we're seeing that we can mix the two things together. I think the bit that I'm frustrated about is that I don't think we connect with our customers, and I don't think we connect to tell them the stories about the brand or the stories about the product. And what I'm hearing today and I've been looking at is actually how we should do that. So I think there's a huge opportunity to explain about the DNA testing we do on where our cotton comes from, to the manufacturing process, to the design side. Some people might be interested, some people might not be interested, and it's trying to find the relevant information to give to the relevant people. And because we've come at it from a commercial point of view, in other words, it makes a profit, that may have actually stopped the advancement of how quickly we could grow it, because actually there's not a story there. And I think what Ruth talked about is the story that they connected. And I think that's, you know, in the long term, that's probably a much more sustainable and exciting route and a way to go.
But I see, so you're obviously a much bigger company, or you're kind of more prominent high street wise than, say, maybe Ruth's or Stevens. I mean, in terms of the editorializing and the personalization of that story, how do you prevent that from just becoming kind of corporate speak?
Well, I think there's, first of all, why do we do what we do? I believe we sell, so we're a men's formal wear business predominantly with women's wear. And the only reason I exist is actually to dress people well and appropriately at work. But I don't know we get that across, and I think that's the important part, is it's the stories behind how good you can feel if you're wearing the right clothes on the right occasion, how dressing well can actually advance you at work because you fit in. You can fit in from day one if you go to work wearing the right clothes. So it's about, there's an advisory part to young people when they first start work. So I think there's huge, huge opportunities to actually extract that information and parcel it up and pass it out that then works very well with the commercial side of having retail stores and online.
Tracy, you've heard three kind of people on the design and retail side in this world. Are there concerns, problems, are they what you hear from every brand that you deal with in this space?
Yeah, it's really, really common. And I think it's interesting that we're talking about how you can bring real luxury online. And I suppose we don't think of it that way. People are not just online or offline. Online is prime time, it's all the time. It's about connected devices. The average person has 4 connected devices, so they're always online. So there's opportunity to engage with your consumer at multiple touch points, whether it's at that stage of inspiration, as Ruth was talking about, where they're discovering information about your brands through other consumers or through you, or whether it's at the point of purchase decision. So 45% of people have their phones with them during the shopping experience, so even in store. So there's the lines are being blurred between what is online and what is offline. So I think it's really about mobile and connected devices and understanding that consumer journey at multiple touch points and to be present at the right time for the right person. And I think, you know, social has been a really big part of giving brands the opportunity to do that. So whether it's very high-end, top of the funnel, just communicating and telling stories, or right down to the bottom of the funnel when someone has been through that journey with you and is ready to then purchase. So, you know, I think the topic's interesting, but I think we need to think about connected devices and connected people. So
is that something that's changed? I mean, the connected devices, obviously mobile is growing at a crazy rate in terms of usage.
So mobile is growing at twice online's pace. So in the last 12 months, mobile has surpassed what online has grown to in the last 5 years. So I think, most brands need to be thinking about the mobile consumer, whether it's in their store, whether it's on their tablet at home, on the bus, or online at desktop, which is declining rapidly. So we see it, at Facebook, 70% of activity is online. We went from being a desktop company, we're now an app in the App Store. So that is how people are engaging.
Now, can I come to you, Graham, about the notion of data? Because I think one of the things this raises, everyone's talked about experience, everyone's talked about personalization, everyone's talked about stories and storytelling. But obviously, if you, as a small company in particular, work with a big company like a Google or a Facebook, if the algorithm switches, you're in a bit of a pickle. I was told I wasn't allowed to swear, but I was about to. You're basically screwed. How do you manage that then? Because surely the key thing about this relationship as you build something that's scalable and sustainable is controlling the data, controlling that relationship. How do you manage that, and where do you see all that data bit coming, and how are brands telling you they deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, about data, I think that we use this term data very frequently. No one really is truly understanding what they mean by data. And I think what data represents is your customer. It's just a digital representation of what your customer is doing. So I think when you say, what's our data strategy, you should drop the term data and say, what's our customer strategy? So when you start looking at it on that lens, you start to think of your business in a very normal sense again. I think, the other major thing, and I'll come to the Google, Facebook question in a sec, the other major thing that we're seeing here is that I think in about 5 to 10 years, we'll stop saying online, offline. We'll stop saying mobile, tablet. 120 years ago, there was a head of electricity at a lot of companies. And so, which company here has a head of electricity? I just want to check. No one. Good. And so, we all use electricity. I hope we do. And so we all use data. We all want to know our customers. So it's just intrinsic. It's about knowing your customer. So when it comes to what do the algorithms mean for understanding your customer, that's a very important question, because the algorithms that you control or the algorithms that are or sort of very, very sort of important for your business start to become your actual strategy in this new world. So if your business entirely relies on Google SEO, natural search traffic, that's a risky strategy because you don't control that. Now Google allows you to buy ads. You can control that. There's an economic cost to that, but you effectively bid on keywords and you can drive traffic to your site. Facebook, in a similar way, you are connecting with users. You can rely on people naturally talking about your brands. That's the earned media on the newsfeed. Or you can use the Facebook advertising platform to acquire your customers. And so I think you can't rely on the algorithms to grow your business. And nobody can start a business today and say, my strategy is to get to the top of the apps store in Apple or to get to the top of the Google search listings. You will not succeed that way. So you need to go back to thinking, what's my customer strategy? And when it comes to algorithms you do control, a lot of businesses rely on product recommendation. And product recommendation is a very risky thing because those are the recommended products. That also is a bit of a black box. You need to understand how these things work and prevent your customers from getting stuck in a filter bubble.
So this offline-online distinction seems to be melting away. So me, as somebody who runs a media company, like that I work at, I mean, you've obviously seen this kind of experience in community building. Are there lessons from what media's had to deal with that maybe fashion and luxury might learn?
I think from the point of view of New Scientist and from the point of view of media more generally, a lot of the talk about algorithms is talking about mass behavior, and it's talking about the behavior of people, if not in the aggregate, then at least about how you deal with large numbers of people. And I think the question that media should have asked a lot earlier, and which perhaps fashion should be asking, is which bit of the data do you want to own? So what I'd suggest is that one of the potential avenues of interest here is mass customization. Just responding to the idea of luxury, I thought about couture, I thought about scarcity. One of the things that digital full stop promises is that you don't have that scarcity, that everybody can have personalized clothes, everybody can have that kind of element of luxury. For that to happen, really, in a kind of in a scalable way, you need to have 3D body scanning, which, as you've probably seen, people are starting to offer this as a service. I think Asda was doing it, actually. I can't remember exactly which chain it was. So you could go in, you could get your body scanned. Now, that is obviously a critical thing if you want to deliver personalized clothes for a mass audience. And my question, I guess, would be, who's going to own that scan? If you give that scan to the Facebooks or Googles of the world, then you will be back in the position that you are with algorithms, where you're dependent on third parties to determine what you can and can't do. If you own the scan, then you have to build the trust with your customer. You have to kind of be in a position where somebody walking into your shop, perhaps for the first time ever, is going to say, fine, scan my body, warts and all, bingo wings and all the rest of it, and I'll give you that information. You can sit on that information, you can make a model from me, and we're now locked into something where we'll do this for years and years and years. And obviously Savile Row has done that since forever, but there's a lot of trust there. And the media didn't pick up on that fast enough. We didn't realize, I mean, I'm speaking for my industry, quickly enough that, that having that relationship directly with your customer and the aspects that you would have to control isn't just about what people do or what they're interested in or the tick box approach. There's something more personal that you need to get out to make that relationship work. And I think that's maybe the thing that fashion could do with thinking about. But I don't know fashion, so maybe it is.
So, Tracy, I'm going to let you defend Facebook, of course. Bit unfair. I mean, obviously, tons of brands come to you and find it a very useful tool. Instagram, for instance, is a kind of incredibly visual way of transmitting something in a way that text can't really do, and advertising doesn't. It's very personal, and obviously you have the social aspect. Can you speak to just a bit of those points we raised about the notion of kind of working with a kind of company like Facebook or in Instagram as well? Obviously, it's part of your family. I mean, how does one make the best use of that? So
I think brands and businesses need to stop focusing on the how and focus on the who. Right? So a lot of distraction around bright, shiny objects like 3D body scanning and everything else. But if you're not connecting with your consumer, well, that's the issue. I think we're experiencing a bit of a renaissance when it comes to marketing, whereby the consumer is more in control than ever before. Right? And you're not competing with the next luxury brand or fashion brand. You're competing with people's thumbs in their phone. Right? So our first advice is to set very clear objectives about what you want to do. Is your strategy to engage more with your consumers? Is it to sell more product? Is it to find more high-value consumers that look like the consumers that spend most with you? Is it churn reduction? Like, what is your objective? And then let's clearly map out a strategy together to how to do that. It just so happens that a lot of the fashion companies have really latched on to this discovery element of social media, which is why Instagram is so popular, and Twitter and Facebook, because it's a visual platform for them to represent and share and discover where they're most engaged. And I think the fashion industry have been very fast to engage with this. But the areas where they've been kind of slow to engage is the kind of more meaningful, deeper, objective-based marketing, where they can really understand their consumer journey and take them down the funnel it can be in a very luxury way. And I think a lot of brands don't use the tools that are available to them and have been available for a while, like really deep targeting, whether it's targeting from Facebook, but also bringing their own consumer database targeting to Facebook or to other platforms to be able to bring them both together to give their consumers the most rich experience for their brand. And I think they're the basics, and they're available now, and they've been available for quite a long time, but I feel like as an industry, we get distracted by what is the new bright, shiny thing, because we're so used to being creative and innovative. But I think if we're not getting the basics right, we're really doing consumers a disservice.
Can I just do a quick check with people in the audience? How many of you use Instagram?
Hey.
There's a few who aren't. You need to get on that. How many Google Plus? And what about Pinterest? Interesting. Stephen, again, talking about that personalization.
1 in 4 people. 1 in 4 people in the world globally are in social media. It's 2.7 billion people globally. It's not going away. This is where consumers are engaging.
Of course, but I guess the question is that if we're saying that luxury maybe is a bit slow to get to this or get fast and develop those deep relationships, I mean, what's going to make that relationship switch? Consumers are going to drive it?
I think it's going to be driven by the consumer. very much so. And some, some luxury brands are there already. They're thinking about more than just a digital experience. Like, how do they extend that experience to in stores and other channels?
I mean, Stephen, you were talking about that a little bit before about changing the nature of the. I mean, ultimately, it seems quite simple. Just do what customers want you to do and how to kind of relate to them better, doesn't it? I mean, you're kind of already doing some of the stuff in your stores. You said about changing that experience to reflect this new world we're in. Can you give us some kind of tangible things of what's changed? You've been on Matches, you're doing your own e-commerce website. Are there other very tangible things that maybe at the beginning of your journey you didn't think about that all of a sudden kind of hit you that you needed to do to change, to develop those deeper relationships?
Yeah, I think that, there's sort of two sides to it. One is other people talking about your product for you, which obviously is what happens a lot on the social side and, all the different platforms we've spoken about. And sometimes that can be amazing. I mean, without being too much name dropping, last year we had Beyonce bought a ring in a shop in the Hamptons. So she went into a bricks and mortar store called Scoop, that's more of a fashion store, and we sell our jewellery there. And so she bought this ring. It wasn't a very important ring, but it was very identifiable, and then photographed her hand instantly and sent it out on her Instagram. And within minutes, you've got 433,000 likes or something. And something like that, you go, oh my God, that's amazing. But it can also be a crappy photograph that someone's taken that you don't really want them to be talking about. So I don't really have the answer for that. We just talk about the ones we want to talk about. And just leave it at that. But I think that's one side, and that's, like I said, very dynamic, but moves very quickly, and it's great having people talking about your product because generally it's positive, generally. And then I think the other thing is the experience we were talking about, and how do we differentiate? And I think at the moment, I'm constantly surprised, but as a rule, if I'm using very exotic materials in what we call our high jewellery, I think probably, I don't want to say it's 100%, but it might be 99% of that product is still bought in a more conventional way, just because it would be pushing it too much to expect everybody to know enough to spend, let's say 100 grand on a necklace that's got fire opals mixed with rubies and orange sapphires online at the moment. And, now having said that, and this is true, at the weekend, we sold a bracelet on the matches.com, which was multicoloured sapphires, and I think it was like 13 or 15,000 pounds. That did surprise me, because it's, it's quite dynamic to look at, but I think it needs a certain amount of understanding, which I'm presuming that person who bought it did have.
But do you worry about that at all? Because obviously you're a craftsman. You kind of the nature of how you build that and the conversation you might have with a client is very important. I mean, as we enter, obviously it's nice to sell stuff because that's probably what you're in business to do. But do you worry that you're losing some of that deeper relationship, which we spoke about, that very human aspect of that work?
Well, I built the business very much about that personal side. I didn't have any other way that I knew of to do it. So I felt that I needed to touch all my clients, which you can look at that any way you want, but it was really about the experience was very personal. And then you have to let go because you're selling in stores. And some stores are beautiful. There's no question about it. I think generally our display in Bergdorf Goodman, which is not my store, looks pretty good. Other times it doesn't. So that sort of, I've already had to address that, in a more conventional way. I think this is just an extension of that, and often I would say online representation can be better and more dynamic than it may be being in another environment with bricks and mortar that's not mine, that I have very little control over. So I'm not worried in that respect. One of the things that's been interesting for us, and I think maybe you spoke a little bit about it with the shirts, was that we did a short film which was about the creating of a piece. Quite a sort of a progressive design piece of jewellery, but the creating of it. And I'm a jeweller myself. I've made jewellery for 25 years, so I could really talk about it. And that was hugely popular as a piece, maybe more than a celebrity-linked story that we'd had. So that's very interesting, because it seems that people are interested to learn a bit more than just, you know, what the product is. And you can do that online.
Yeah. And also that's something you can control, because the Beyonce, you can't control that she's going to buy your ring and tweet it, can you?
Yeah.
Whereas
I wouldn't want to control Beyonce. But you're right, yeah.
Ruth, can you tell us a little bit about, as a retailer, what are the kind of, if you just give these guys a bit of advice, what are 3 things that you would say you can control and set in place that actually make this question tangible?
I was really interested in hearing what Stephen was saying, because I think for us, the relationships that we have with brands are key, and what TM Lewin was talking about too is how you tell that story from the beginning. So I think it's key to work with the right people to try and get this across on the craftsman element, which I think is key. Knowing that you're working with a partner who is going to tell your story well is the right thing for a brand. And for sure that has to be conveyed. I mean, video is an amazing tool for us now, and that video worked for Stephen, and we see that more and more, that video can really tell a story on many, many levels. And I think what Tracy was saying was really key as well, that looking to mobile is the way forward. Also, developing a loyalty with your customers, that's key. So, and Tracy alluded to this as well, is making sure you're listening to your customers through these different platforms, as well as giving them information. You need to be taking the information too and listening to what they want. I'm less interested in the mass algorithms, because I don't think luxury is particularly mass. I think it's something that we need to use algorithms for, to narrow it down, to personalize, to talk to customers, to take lots of information and listen, and then give those customers what they want to their personality. So we're really narrowing down that customer experience, so that everybody is getting the story that they want delivered to them, the discoveries that they want delivered to them, the information that they need delivered to them wherever they are. Graham and I were talking about this a little earlier, and having stores and having online, it's really important that we marry the two, that when a customer enters our store, that we have an understanding of them, that we have full transparency, that we can talk to them about what they've bought before, how they can build their wardrobe from there. So it's about learning as much as we can from the customer that they want us to know, not in an invasive way, and using that information to help them make the choices they want to make. And also to make them have an exciting experience. I think that's key as well. It's got to be exciting, it's got to feel fresh, we've got to deliver newness. We can't be talking about something that's stale, particularly in the fashion space. It's got to be really, really key new news.
Interesting. Now, Jeff, on the TM Lewin side, you mentioned that you didn't think you'd been doing this well enough up to now, and you're looking to do it going forward. Just how did you miss that? I mean, and what is it that particularly you want to kind of focus on telling that story that you're not doing now? And how do you intend to go about doing it? I mean, what plans do you have in place strategically to kind of make that work?
I think, so we've got 90 bricks and mortar stores in the UK and around 60 outside of the UK. And I think one of the things Ruth just mentioned, which is a single view of customer. So if you've bought something online, we have all your data. We know exactly what you bought. We know when you bought it. We might, with using the right algorithms, know when you want to buy something, although we don't have all that information and we're not really using it. But at the moment, if you come in the store, you come in, you buy something, it goes through the till, and you're gone. And we're not capturing. So we only recently, in the last 9 months, say, started to capture the data in store, and I think it's actually this month we go live with actually joining up now somebody coming in the shop with also what they may have bought online, and there is a huge crossover between our customers. It's a phenomenal sort of crossover between people buying both online and in store. So it's about getting the knowledge, and we have to create. We've had to change the infrastructure to do that, and change the technology that we've got to do that. And so that's the first sort of thing that we've got to do. Then actually it's also knowing what you want to do with it once you've got some information, because information is great, but if you haven't got a plan. So we're just engaging with a new company. Again, it's about bringing expertise into the business so that we're understanding the way we can communicate with our customer base. And it's really about trying to, for me, it's about trying to find a time when we're communicating relevant information to a customer and not just bombarding them with emails or because we feel as if we're talking to them, but we're not actually talking to them, we're talking at them. So those are the sort of the things that we're doing. At the same time, we are a commercial business, we still have to grow. So on one side, we're looking at the future and what we need to do. On the other, we've grown internationally, and we work with the UKTI on part of our store and partner selection outside, and they've just launched something recently called e-exporting, which is now going to potentially tie you up with up to 400 e-marketplaces. So we're looking at, with them, at the opportunity to take our website through on an e-marketplace, which might be a Tmall in China, Amazon, eBay. So it's also thinking about, it's a huge world out there. Actually, it's trying to think about the bit that we want, how we make that relevant. And that's why I think we've got a little bit more work to do here in the UK, because you don't want to be shouting outside of the UK until actually you really understand what you want to shout about, or not shout, whisper. To me, it's I'm 34 years in the same company, and I come in every day and I think, God, there's a lot to do, and there is, because it's just always changing.
Graham, when it comes to this kind of the brands you deal with and the people you consult with, I mean, what are the big things that they're confronting? What are the things that really freak them out about this new world? Because there's a lot of change, and all of the people on the panel are all doing very well at it. But no one really talks about when actually it's going all wrong, or when you can't afford to do some of this stuff. Or, part of the struggle, it seems to me, is that there's so much uncertainty. It's so experimental, which is amazing if you're used to that. But you kind of think you got the answer, and then all of a sudden, a month down the road, you realize that the model you designed is no longer relevant.
Yeah, I mean, our customers sort of are as diverse as Jimmy Choo and Belstaff, for instance, on the luxury side, to Uniqlo and Topshop on more of the fast fashion. So there's a big difference between what happens with these two types of customers. It's the same strategy. Again, it's replaced the word data with customer. So what are you trying to do with your customer? And it's about looking at, how do I create the best possible experience for the different customer stages? And so we're helping a lot of our clients are using our technology to unwind themselves from the black box of an algorithm trying to do everything automatically, and actually to get them to create customer strategies for a person who's never visited your brand before, a person who looks at your stuff all the time but never buys, and a person who buys from you every week. There's essentially 20 different customer segments based on the stage of journey, the likelihood of that customer to buy, the ability for that customer to buy, and how much money they have to make a purchase. And it's about building those strategies out for those different customer sets. And so, to Summit's point, our system is actually allowing much more about mass customization. And mass customization is much more akin to just effective customer strategy, but at scale. And so I think, we're entering a world where there's a lot more control around how you talk to your customers. And what we've seen is that when you show an early stage customer how your product is made, it drives conversions by 15-20%. To Stephen's point on that, it's sort of a 20% increase in sales. But if you show that to somebody who's a regular customer of yours and they don't care, it's a barrier in the journey for them to buy. So so what is the relevant piece of information you need to show that user at the right time? And that's what analytics and personalization are bringing into the field now. And it's taking away the risks, and it's creating more control. And I think we're still looking at websites that are basically a catalog with a checkout facility. You go onto these sites and it's like, here's the navigation, lots of choice, thumb through the catalog, lots of crap to look at. That is not a luxury digital experience. And we really need to start to think about what the user needs to interact with at that point, and how to get really, really creative about that. And it's a creative process, not just a data process.
I'm
I'm going to throw it out to you guys for some questions. If you could just let us know your name, excuse me, just a reminder, this is all being live streamed. Hashtag is LFW, so if you want to tweet, please do. But anyone have any questions out there? If you guys let us know who you are and where you're from, and maybe who the question was directed to, that'd be great. This gentleman over there. I don't know if we have mics, but maybe just shout. Oh, we do have mics. Brent.
Alec Robertson. I'm a kind of design futures person. The question really is around the word...
Futures person.
Yes, I kind of look ahead. The word experience is used a lot in everywhere, from design to fashion. Could you be more specific of how do you design experience?
Who do you want to direct that to?
Anyone, really.
At a given time, we'll probably just do one answer. Anyone want to pitch it on that?
I think that when we think about luxury for the customer online, we need to think about the fact that the customer generally has less time than they've ever had before. So luxury is time. Luxury is comfort. You're in the comfort of your own home. You have some time. You might have a glass of wine in front of you. And then you want to experience something. You want it to be you don't want it to interfere with your home life or your social life. You want it to be reasonably quick, but you also want it to be exciting, to be interesting, to be pertinent to you. You want to be able to find it easily. And Graham used a word which we love at Matches Fashion, which is creative. And I think all the data in the world, you need to be doing something super creative now. You need to be coming up with new ideas that engage the customer, ways of talking about product that are creative, thinking about all the time, thinking about who your customer is and how they might want to experience that. And that could be through video, that could be through listening to experts, that could be through something much more fun. There are so many ways. It's about who your customer is. I mean, we have a customer who's from 20 to 70, so when we talk to our customers, we have to really talk to them in so many different ways. We have to think about who we're talking to all the time and make sure that we're not excluding anybody, that we're making sure different parts of our information is relevant to different audiences, and that they do experience something, that they come away with actually an emotional connection to us as a brand. I think that's the important part.
Could I just add something? We have different types of customers, but we have a particular customer in the city where we've got a number of stores and male customers that buying shirts is like an SAS experience. It's how fast can they get in, how fast can they get them, and how fast can they get out. And we had to change some of the processes in the stores just to facilitate that SAS experience, which of course lots of customers want to talk and feel get comfortable with what they're buying. But this was a totally different thing, and it's sort of around the lunchtime period where it was just poof poof. And they didn't want to talk to a member of staff. If a member of staff approached them, it's like, I know what I want.
Can I expand on that a little bit? I think one of the things that I became very aware of, when we started opening stores, was how intimidating a jewellery store can be. You've got probably you're going to enter a place where you're going to part with a lot of money, and there's a security guard, and everything about it is quite intimidating. And we did sort of focus groups, and funny enough, the most intimidated group were men, and I think. We're nowhere near there yet, but we're trying to use our digital platforms that part's gone. There is no intimidation. You're not, you've got your glass of wine, whoever said that, or whatever you might have. You're sat there, you're in your own space, and you want an experience. It's not so much that the experience has got to be radically different. I mean, the use of let's say a moving catalogue, whatever you want to call it, video and all that sort of adding to it is what you can focus on. But I think that's been a key thing for us, is to it was understanding we're used to it. We're in the jewellery business that we just walk into a store, but that's quite scary for people. And as demographics change, You know, you get more and more people that maybe English is not their first language. That's another barrier. You've got, you know, a younger crowd come in. And so I think we kind of, as much as we're trying to make that bricks and mortar experience the least intimidating that it can be, it's still quite intimidating. And I'm presuming that mostly people are not intimidated, as long as they can find their way around their mobile, their tablet, whatever. You know, you haven't got somebody kind of, that person, that scary moment when a person comes up to you and, you know, asks you what you know, what you're looking for, whatever it is, I don't know. But I know that does impact people a lot, affects them.
Really interesting thing about this, because in the technology world, in the Valley and so on and so forth, for a long time, engineers have been the hottest commodity as employees. You know, they come out of university and get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars without having any experience. And increasingly, designers are actually much, much, much in demand. This notion of UX, user experience, becomes a differentiator, doesn't it? Whether you're in luxury or not. We all know the websites we use, which are much more intuitive and a very human way of kind of dealing with that interaction, and that becomes extra valuable, doesn't it? And I think for all of your worlds, I'm sure that's extra important. I think time's against us, so we have time for one more question. I'm afraid this woman just there, just behind you, had a question last time. Yeah, sorry.
Hi, I'm Anna from Fashion Files in the States, and my question is for Ms. Chapman. Could you talk a little bit more of the importance of editorial for Matches Fashion?
Yes, I think it's a really interesting question. We have the style report on Matches Fashion, and it's something that's visited every week. We change it, we update it. It has new fashion stories. It has new fashion insiders that we're talking to. We feel it's very relevant because it's very inclusive. We talk about people who are working in the industry and what they like to wear. There's always a link back to what you can buy. And actually, what we find is that people respond, they spend the most money when we talk about how to wear things. People who really engage with fashion know exactly what they want, but there's a huge group of women and men who don't really know exactly how they want to put looks together. So for them, the editorial platform is really key. Also, everybody's really interested in how to style things, how to put things together, what the new mood is, what people might be wearing. Any piece that when we talk about women or guys as well and what they're wearing, and in some ways, the more real the piece, the better. The more the emotional connection that the audience has with that person, the more interesting they find it. And more, increasingly with video, they find that really engaging, where they're actually listening to somebody talk about their wardrobes or what they like to wear or what they're feeling about the next season. That's really compelling for them.
Can I just add to that? What we've seen across our 300 million customers that on the retailers that use Qubit is that editorial content drives a 10 to 15% increase in sales. So when somebody goes through that journey, it drives a 10 to 15. It's essential. And I mean, I'd like to make a prediction here that every e-commerce business needs an editor. It needs an editorial section within it, because I think that this means dollars or pounds or euros for these businesses. It's essential. And what is today the blog, the blog is sort of the sorry little thing in the corner of the business, needs to be front and center editorial, and it needs to be independent editorial as well. You need to actually allow the editor to write what they want. And sometimes they might write bad things about the stuff you're selling. You need to let them have that level of freedom. Because we're looking at this just being an essential thing. And it's a mix between editorial and user-generated information as well. But it's essential to selling.
Okay, I'm afraid time's against us. The last word to Shamit. Can you give us maybe one or two technologies that are coming down the road that could be the next iteration of what everyone is talking about, needs to be thinking about, that could maybe benefit the luxury industry?
So there are a lot of technologies in this space that never quite arrive. I mean, 3D printing is the one where everybody rolls their eyes. I mean, it'll come one day and it'll make a difference. I'm not sure when that breakthrough is going to happen. I do think it's interesting that a lot of what I've heard here is around still this very limited, as far as the digital component goes, this very limited palette of what you can see and what you're told. And I'm kind of interested in how much more you could do if you treats as more of an interactive experience. It sort of strikes me that, I mean, in fiction, actually, not in journalism, there's this maxim of show, don't tell. Showing is much more powerful. I wonder if fashion knows at this point whether it's a show business or a tell business. As far as technologies goes, the one that I would flag up at this point, because it's the one that will really make a difference, is haptics, is the ability to touch and feel objects digitally. And I say this actually because of, slightly weirdly, the first time I experienced this was by feeling the interior of a cow in a veterinary simulator, and which is quite an incredible thing. But I cannot tell you how much more visceral, I can't think of a better word, it is to have that experience where you feel something rather than something when you look at something. When you look at a diagram, when you look at a model. When you feel something and it feels real, that's an incredibly powerful experience, and it's coming. There are screens that can tell what you're doing without you actually touching them. Haptics are arriving in a big way. They're going to arrive in the gaming space quite soon. It seems like something that is going to make an incredible difference to commerce generally, and to fashion in particular. So that's the one.
On that note, I think it's very interesting. I was going to use a slightly less graphic example of the human experience. One of the things that strikes me about London Fashion Week is that people can tweet to each other, follow each other on Instagram, and they come to a place like this, and they say, I follow you on Instagram. You immediately have a connection of some sort. So I think there's a value for human actions, human activities like this. On that note, I'd like you very much to thank our panel, and thank you all for coming, and enjoy the next gig tomorrow. Bye.